Okay, good morning, class. Now, today's class is where we talk of research methods in business. Okay, and to go about with it, the first thing that we really need to know is what do you mean by research? Research is a process of inquiry. You need to inquire about either a problem or an opportunity and investigate. Okay, it's done in a systematic way, it's methodical and ethical. Ethics plays a vital role. Why is it done? It helps in solving some practical problems and also increase knowledge. As per Bloomberg, research is a scientific inquiry. So you see the word systematic inquiry. So you see the word systematic comes again and again. Systematic inquiry. Main objective is to provide information which will help in solving problems, managerial problems. Okay. Research, again, these are different definitions given by different experts. Research is something which people undertake. Why? To find out things in a systematic way. The word systematic coming up once again, which helps in increasing our knowledge. When we talk of systematic, right, it's talking of doing a work based on some logical relationships and not just on beliefs. Like I think that's what I feel, and that's no, it's not that. There has to be some real. You need to have some evidence which has to be there. Okay. Now, when we talk of to find out things, it could be to describe, for explaining, understanding, it could be criticizing or analyzing. Now, the objectives of research first comes up is categorization. Categorization is when you categorize the problems into various types of study. There can be various types of study, so categorizing it as per the various types. Explanation, say for example, like why prices are increasing or demand for a product falling. Predicting, say for instance, how customers behave. Creating a sense of understanding where you understand the cause and effect of certain things happening. Providing potential for control, say where you're making coming up with a decision which is control mechanisms based on which you come up with a decision, right? And decision, like how can you decide? If you can actually predict the future, you can say how things are going about. Evaluating certain incidents. Evaluation can be done either on the you look into the past or the present or future events or strategies, and then just evaluate and say what do you think about it, what does it say. So types of research can be of two different types. One is your basic research, the other is applied research. Okay, now basic research is which adds further knowledge to the actual knowledge. Further knowledge, you don't have I mean it's there, it's just piling up of your or of some additional knowledge to what is already there. You don't learn anything new, right? It's there. Whereas when we talk of applied research, it is when you do a research which is practical, you can use it in reality, which can be put into use, practically put into use, and it's beneficial to solve some practical problems. Okay, so that's the difference. Is basic research is you do not have gain any extra something new. You are whatever knowledge is there, you are enhancing your knowledge. Whereas when you talk of applied research, you're coming designing doing a research where which can be actually put it into practice in reality and solve certain problems. But of course it's done in a systematic way to find out the solutions to certain problems, or when there are certain opportunities, how to capitalize on it. So as we say, applied research is also called business research. That's what exactly you all are going to do, like business research. So what is it? To finding out things, so by collecting data, providing information and interpretation. following a systematic way, and solves managerial problems. So it's a study which involves in collecting valid information, not any information, information which is valid to your problem, which would help in solving the issues, the managerial issues of the business organization. Only those information which would result ultimately in better performance. So, what is business project? Business project is anything, it's a temporary endeavor. Temporary because it's a limited span of a project, business project. You anything which your any problem is there, or there's an opportunity which is there, which needs to be how to go about with it, or to how to solve it. But that's a time span, definite time span. So it's temporary, which is why it has a beginning, it has an end, right? And it's used. This process is used basically to create a product which is unique, or a service, or coming up with a result in problem, so a result comes up. Okay, so it's the same thing as it's again, like it says that projects are those activities that cannot go on indefinitely, time bound, and has a defined, predefined purpose why you are doing it. So it has to be there for creating a new product, service, or you can solve a problem. So what are the activities that are undertaken, right? That is which are daily routine activities that are not considered projects. Daily day-to-day activities is not what you say project, but activities which helps in creating something new, coming up with something new with a definite time span, a predefined purpose goal. That is what project is. Now, coming up next is the key characteristics of a business project, right? First is objective. Every project has to have a fixed set of objectives. Once the objectives are achieved, project is completed. Life cycle, just as products life cycle, project also has a life cycle: growth, maturity, and decay. When you start your project, it expands, it reaches the stage of satiation, and then at some point you have to stop it, and you learn through this process, through the entire project. It helps us to learning naturally. Uniqueness: no two projects are similar, though the plans can be exactly same. Like plans in the same is where, say, any project requires a proper location, some infrastructure, people who would help you, the agencies, external agencies, then human resources. It's needed for every project, but it's different. These components are same, but for each project, it the characteristics of the components that vary: different location, different infrastructure, different technology, different group of people whom you're going to collaborate with, different sort of human resources with different skills. That's why it's unique. Change, right? Any projects, they when it's undertaken, this undergo or sees many changes throughout, right? So out of which some of them may not have any major impacts, but there can be some changes which can change the entire character of or course of the project. Some cannot, may not have major impacts, minor, doesn't affect much, but some which has a drastic change. Say the present scenario, global scenario, that changes everything. Lifespan, as we already said, project cannot continue endlessly. It has to come to an end, right? End is where you achieve your predetermined goals, objectives. Single entity. Project is one single entity. Why? Because it's one person or one organization which is controlling it. Though there are many people who are working in that project, but one controlled by one project under one person or one organization. That's why it's single entity. Teamwork: project has to be done by people. It's not one person's work. So you have people from different disciplines, organizations, even countries. Outsourcing happens, experts from different parts. It comes up helping. Some are giving you, providing with the materials. Like when you do your project, you will have to take help of others to provide you with all the information. Made to order, that is, It is customized as per the needs of the customer. Customers will tell you to do a project. They will give you the project. They'll tell you what are the, and they will say what are their requirements and what are the restrictions within which the project has to be done. So what can be done, what cannot be done. Based on that, it has to be, so it has to be adapted as per the needs of the customers. Unity in diversity. Now, a project, when there are any project that is undertaken, there are huge amount of things, there are variety of things that has to be fulfilled in a project. So it could be in terms of technology, it could be in terms of equipment, materials, machinery, people, work culture, ethics, right? These are all different things which are quite complex, but they are interrelated. And if they are not interrelated, if it cannot be coordinated together, the project cannot be completed. Successive principle. Successive principle. Now what happens, like successive in the sense is like when a project is undertaken, what we do not know what's exactly going to happen when you start working on a project. You do not know, because there are a lot of things can change, right? And these changes that comes up helps us to decide what to do. This helps, and that's how we can actually complete a project. The details get finalized successively as we move ahead. More and more details come up successively, one after the other, over a span of time, and that helps. Risk and uncertainty. Every project has uncertainty, but it varies from project to project. It varies. It also depends at which stage of the life cycle is your project. So it happens. Project without any uncertainty or risk, that is not a very good project. It cannot happen. So it is there. It has to be there, and it also tells us how effective you are in solving those problems, those risks and uncertainty. High level of subcontracting. Now, 80% of the big projects that's there, it's been subcontracted or outsourced, taking help from others who are actually doing a part of that work. It could be managerial advice, it could be manufacturing of intermediate parts, it could be anything else, provide helping with the technology or anything else, but it is done. So, some of the examples of a project is, so developing a new product or service, constructing a building or facility, acquiring a new or modified data system, implementing a new business process, streamlining a process, understanding causes of failure of a project which you would be doing it, or making strategic plans, right? So these are the things, like some of the things which you will be actually, you can come across in your, when you do your research work. Now, types of projects. It could be construction projects, research projects, re-engineering projects, procurement projects, business implementation projects, and there can be other types also. So we'll go into details of this. Construction projects is when a project which helps in building, coming up with a new artifact, okay? So which could involve both human as well as mechanical components. It can be, if it's a very complex system, say designing a warship or Jubilee line extension, Millennium Dome, customer call center, customer call center, method guidebook or IT systems. A customer call center where you require both human and mechanical computers, as well as you have the call center experts. Next comes up is your research projects. Now, research projects helps in producing knowledge. Okay, it may be formally done through models, patterns, or patterns, or it could be done through your working, when you're working, as you work in your working process, or some coming up with some artifacts. Say business modeling, for example, developing a model of UK economy, developing a new species of wheat, developing novel approaches to project management, military intelligence or code breaking. That happens when your enemies try to attack and they try to break the codes, right? They do it. The analysis, testing, question answer, or evaluation portions of a larger project. You will be using this. This is something which you're going to do. Re-engineering projects. Re-engineering, we know that when you do away with the old techniques and come with something new. So these projects are main thing is to come up with a change in the exam system or process. Say, taking sterling into the euro, remembering the UK telephone system, implementing Prince project management practices into a large organization, or designing and installing an intranet. Procurement projects. Now, projects these are basically the which helps in producing a business relationship. Okay, whereby which is basically where you select a particular supplier or a particular product or service, right? Based on certain specifications that you give or a specification process. If you talk a product with certain specifications or a process with certain specification, and based on that you select your supplier. Procurement is to get someone who gives you, right? So you need a proper supplier. So outsourcing a specific construction or research project, outsourcing a complete business function, say an IT function, or imposing new rules and measures for a regulated industry. So here when we had say construction, so we had in Bhutan what we have is we do have the flyover when you go from Antisi to Thimphu, you have the flyover which was built, which was outsourced. Business implementation projects. Okay, so this is basically to produce and a better process of which can be operationally, which is more a process which is more effective, and the value generated by the process should be by the project is included, is embedded in that process. Say, developing a new business process to repackage something certain products or exploiting new assets, installing e-commerce. There could be other types of other than this other types of projects. Some of these projects are very difficult to classify. Say national symbolic programs, putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade. That's one. Second type is metro grants project, say where you talk of coming up with new labor, large medical programs, say creating an artificial heart, mass inoculation programs. And there can be other hybrid or interdisciplinary projects, pilot projects. Pilot projects is where you do a sample survey of the actual project that is done, involving different aspects, disciplines. Moving offices, that takes involves a lot of things. The type of business project undertaken by an organization, there can be three types. One is strategic projects where it talks of designing a high quality business strategy. Say, for instance, a company, right? They want to determine their marketing strategy, to so that they can have a lowest price option. So what they will do a total market analysis of what is the market price, looking into the customer competitors' prices, and then come up with their own, which is lower. Operational projects, which is not tied to the overall strategy of the organization, but which is done to meet some of the business objectives. Say a software system which needs to be upgraded to the latest version, which would help because every business wants the latest technology. That's one of the objectives. Third type is a recurring project. These are projects which happens on a regular basis, which should be unique and temporary in nature. Say when you talk of technology development, right? Technology development projects. Say when Samsung or Apple, they come up with their phones, right? They're upgrading their phones, but what is happening? It's been released for a specific period of time at a particular time, and which has that model has some unique features. But they go on improving, coming up with something better, but not that particular model. Okay, so the purpose of the project first comes up is to review, synthesize, or existing knowledge, investigate the existing situations or the problems, then providing solutions to problems, explore and analyze some more general issues, construct or create new procedures or systems, trying to explain new phenomena, create new knowledge, or a combination of any of these, right? That's there. Okay. Explore new possibilities and opportunities, suggesting and developing ways to overcome a problem or approach the opportunity. This you'll be either handling this or this, and then comes up this in your research, right? Predicting future or impact of certain outcomes or activities, preparing plans and strategies, testing the various methods proposed. So research approaches can be of two categories. One, it's either quantitative or qualitative, and the second is either deductive or inductive. Now, quantitative talks of data. Data is where you're talking of numerical data, like collecting and analyzing numerical data, right? And using measures like we have studied, like it could be mean, it could be your frequency, using all correlation, regression, and the different like the frequency table that you use. So what happens? Whoever does this will come up with the same answer, right? It comes up same answer. So it's done. It's that's why it's difficult. It's difficult to design that model initially, but since it's highly structured, detailed, and structured, what happens? Results, you get results very easily, and you can predict it, present it statistically because the same result. It's very easy. Whoever does same result comes. Qualitative is subjective. Quantitative is because data, so it's objective. Qualitative is subjective. It depends on our way, how we look into it. Say, it talks about uh, values, attitudes, perceptions. So it varies from person to person how we look into it, right? And here, that's why it's subjective, and so it's easy to go about with it because it's our own views, but it's very difficult to interpret and present the findings because you do not have any definite facts. Certain things can be interpreted in different way, and these findings can is very easy to challenge because there's no calculation data to support you. Okay, so next we go to deductive and inductive method. Deductive is when we come down from a general idea and to a particular solution. And inductive, on the other hand, from a particular situation, you come up, develop some new concept, new theories, so general. So deductive is, let's say for instance, there is a theory which is there for, so we know that the demand theory, what does it say? That when price increases, the people start demanding less, right? So then we know there's a theory, we start testing it. Is it really true for everyone? So we start looking into different people's behavioral pattern and then say, yes, it is there. So you're testing it to come up to that solution. It is correct. Whereas inductive, on the other hand, is just the reverse. You see certain people, they're buying less. You ask them why. Price is high. Then you say, is it correct for everyone? So you start looking into it. And then the theory is developed that yes, this is the general trend. This is called the theory of demand, where when price increases, price of goods increases, consumers demand less. So the difference between deductive and inductive methods. Deductive methods, as we say, doesn't give any new knowledge. You're just testing something. Whereas inductive, new knowledge comes up. You're coming up with a new theory. Deductive method, you're verifying a theory. And inductive, you're discovering a theory, new thing. Deductive method gets ready-made information and makes use of it. The theory is already there, so you're just using it. And inductive method, it's a method of teaching. So from this is the best one of the ways of teaching, that you see cases are there, like situations, and from there what happens, you're asked to come up with your general conclusion. What do you think of these incidents? What does it say? What can you predict? What can you say? So that's how it goes. It's a quick process, very quick process, because you already have it and you just verifying it. But inductive method is slow because you have to analyze to come up with something new, right? Because its theory is already there, so what happens, It encourages dependence on other sources. It's already there. You're depending on something and you're proving. But whereas in case of inductive methods, it gives us self-confidence. It helps us to take some initiative. It also reforms our mind, trains our mind to come up with something new, right? And for a deductive process, it's a downward process of thoughts and results in some useful, leads to some useful results because you are proving something, right? You're coming up with a result. The theory is there, you're starting proving, going down to, it's from a broader, it comes down to something narrow. So it's a downward process. Whereas in case of inductive method, it's an upward process because it's seeing something and you gradually go up to form a principle. Okay, so applied research method. This is how will you actually do. This is what you're exactly going to go about with it. You need to first analyze the document of the company, right? And from there, the second, next you define the problem or the opportunity from there. So which is also the statement of the project objectives, right? Next comes up is your method design. You have to come up with your designing the methods. Now, how would you do it? You can have experiments which can be done either in the laboratory or in the fields. You can do it. Second comes up is survey. Survey is done either through interview or through questionnaire, any one of them. Third comes up is observation, when you observe the behavioral pattern of people. Fourth is collecting secondary data. Okay, you will use this, you will be using all of this. Right. Once you design your method, then comes testing the method, right? You need to test it. Now, how do you do that? You try out different methods in coming up with choosing which is the best for your project. All these methods. You can be a combination, it can be one, right? And then choosing, when you know which method you choose, then you using that method, you start processing the data and analyzing it, right? So how do you do? It could be through editing and coding of data. It could be through processing. It could be through interpretation of findings. From there you get it. Okay, that's how to do it. Then comes up is from your analysis, you come up with your suggestions, like how do you solve this problem? How do you address your objectives? Okay, so this entire process is the second step, right? Problem or opportunity discovery. First is you do this literature review. From there, you find out your problem or the opportunity, and then you design the method, test it to see which is correct, then do the analysis and come up with your solution. This is how the entire process, this is exactly what you have to do. Okay, so business project process, what are the different process that you have? You've already done it before and we'll do more in the later units. So these are design thinking, lean model, conventional process, creative process, and McKinsey's 7-step to problem solving. So let's go into details. Design for problem solving. There are 3 steps: understand, explore, and deliver. In the understand process, first you have to do a research on and then see what the problem is, and then empathize. You need to feel people, you need to feel the problem, understand the problem, right? Only then are you able to define it clearly. This is fully the understanding part. Once you understand, then comes up your analysis, where you start look into ideate. Ideate comes from ideal, right? You have to make an idea, ideate or ideal or idea, as we say. You have to make an idea about what it says, what the problem says, and have a clear idea, and that helps you in analyzing the problem. It helps you analyzing, and you need to look into, go for prototypes, similar types of problems, how that has been solved. Look into it, and based on that, then you start testing the problem to an analysis. Once that completes your exploration, then comes up to the next part, which is deliver. So you build your solution or recommendation. You need to actually measure or put it into practice, implement to see how well it's going, and you have to test whether it can be sustained or not, right? And this is a entire process which is being replicated. It goes on and on. Okay. Next method is the analytical method for problem solving, where the first thing is to identify the problem, then choose an appropriate process. This is the main step, choosing the appropriate process. Now, use the process to hypothesize, analysis, or solution elements. Hypothesis is like where you make assumption that this is how it will go. So from there, using the process, you come up with an hypothesis. You make an assumption of that. Then you have to design an experiment to test that hypothesis to see whether your hypothesis is correct or not. So after designing the experiment, you have to perform, and then there can be three things. You either accept, reject, or modify the hypothesis. And this entire step 3, 4, and 5, it goes on. It's repeated, and 6 also is repeated until the hypothesis is accepted. So then you start implementing the solution, and finally continuously improve the process as opportunities arise whenever it's possible to do it. The conventional problem solving steps you have. So here what happens is, first thing is to define the problem. So there has a clear definition of the opportunity has to be there. What is it? And a goal should be there for fixing it. Second comes up is brainstorming the solutions, right? So brainstorming ideas, where you pick up a list of possible solutions that could achieve the goal that you stated, and do a look into the pros and cons, do a brainstorm to see which would be best. Third comes up is to pick up a solution. Then you decide which is the best solution. So decision making criteria should be like, it should be effective, it should be efficient, and should be easy to implement. Fourth step is implementing the solution. Implementing the solution with regards to the problem that you have identified for that. The last comes up is to review the results. Review is how and when, how effective and when can you actually implement it. That's important. Creative problem solving. Okay, so creative problem solving can be done either in a divergent phase where you take a lot of information, and or convergent where you focus on the main areas. So first is like, it's a problem sensitivity. So you need to uh, you need to find your problem. You have to do a problem, you have to find out, right, what is it. So it can be done like, you can experiences, roles, and situations are searched for the problem, right? It's looking into all possible opportunities or solution or problems. What is it? Everything. Whereas when we talk of convergent, like, you look into only its systematic efforts undertaken to respond. It's much more systematic. We see where lies the problem, not everything. Then comes up is data finding. In divergent case, data that is taken, okay, it takes up into all, it looks into all the viewpoints, everything, all information, everything. Whereas for convergent, only the most important data are identified and analyzed. Third step is problem finding. So if you look into all possible statements of problems, right? Whereas in case of convergent phase, it's looking into a problem statement which can be achievable, which can be practically achievable, not everything under the sun. Next step is idea finding, where in case of divergent phase, look into multiple opportunities and possibilities responding to the problem statement. But in case of convergent, It's the most promising most promising alternatives possibilities which are very much related to it. Most, the one which is most likely to happen, most probable, those are the ones. Then comes up is solution finding. So here again, for divergent, you take up all possible criteria that is there and start evaluating it. Whereas for convergent, it's taken only the most important criteria are taken and evaluated, only important ones. Then comes up is acceptance finding. Say all possible sources of assistance and resistance are considered, right? Whereas for convergent, it's only the most promising solutions are taken into consideration and specific plans are done. So once it is done, then what happens? You start implementing, new challenges come up, and then you can either again you go back here, back to problem sensitivity. Are they using the divergent phase or using the convergent phase? But the process is same, it goes on replicating. McKinsey's 7 standard steps to problem solving, right? So what happens? You start with how do you have a problem? So you need to define the problem. What are we trying to answer? That's the main thing. Then the structure the problem, where you think what could be the key elements to that problem. What are the main elements for this? What are the main factors? Prioritize issue. Now when you look into that, which issues are the most important that has led to this problem? Then comes up is plan analysis and work, right? Where you start thinking efficiently. Where and how should the team spend its time? Which are the areas, right? Then comes up is where we talk of conduct analysis, where what has to be done to prove or disapprove this action, this problem, what has to be done. Then comes the sixth stage is where we talk of synthesized findings. Think so. What implications do your findings have on the company? What does it have? And then comes up the last stage where you develop recommendations. What should the company do to address that problem? So it's a cyclical process, 7 stages. Okay, lean model. This is basically where we talk of the business startups. Now, what happens here is like you learn as you start your project. So you build your project, you turn your new ideas into products, come into the market, see how your customers are responding to it, take that feedback, right? And from there you learn, right, which activities create more value, which are not, which are waste, and then you move ahead. So it's that's how it goes. So what happens is that some of the common steps that we take for any of these measures is first identify the problem, then create a solution for it, and then implement it to and then this process entirely it goes about. It's cyclical. So we come to the next part, which is research methodologies. That can be two types, positivistic and numenology. Okay, so positivistic is basically it's the approach which talks of the fact that the study of human behavior should be conducted in the same way as of natural sciences, like it's scientific. When you analyze human behavior, whichever way you do it, whoever conducts it, same results come. Say through surveys, when you survey the consumer behavior pattern, whoever does the same result. Through experiments, when we do experiments, the results come the same. Longitudinal studies is doing the same thing, but over a span of time. It can be from short term or from long term perspective, but you're doing it and you get the same result. Cross sectional, cross sectional studies is across different let's say different sections of the society. When you start analyzing how they behave to how you compare, then you're doing a comparison and you get the same results, and the different situations the results comes the same. It's unique, whoever does it, right? Numenology. So numenology is where you are actually, it's this is objective, because the results are same. This is subjective because it depends on who the researcher is. They're understanding human behavior, right? So case studies where each of us, when we analyze a case, we come with a different set of results. Our analysis varies. Action research is like when you are participating into, when you're doing research, you are actually participating in that entire process. Through your work you get to know about it. It's not sitting and doing it. You're also involved in that work. Action. Ethnography is participant observation, when you observe the behavior of the participants and your observation power, you tell something, right? Participative inquiry, when you are actually involved in that process, you start inquiring anything that has happened. You're not sitting idle, you see someone else's data, you are actively involved in the field, you are talking about it, going and inquiring into it, first hand information. Feministic perspectives, that's where it happens, like uh, women have a different opinion from men. That varies. The researchers, a women researcher will have a different opinion as compared to men researchers. So it varies. Last that comes up is grounded theory. Like it's your belief. You're coming up with a theory based on your observation, based on things, how things are going, the experiments that you do. You come up with your theory, grounded. Okay. Okay, next we come up to what we say is a scientific research. Now, scientific research, which looks at scientific research searches for truth, which is based on some logical considerations. It looks for truth, right? Whoever does so gets the same result. It is done to achieve a systematic interrelation of facts, how to interrelate facts, done in a systematic way. It can be done through experiments, through observation, through logical arguments from accepted postulates, like certain theories, certain facts are there, and so you derive your argument based on those facts, which is there. Anyone who does this will come up with the same answer, right? Now, but scientific research methods can be used even for business project, can be used. Okay, now how has it been? For example, say let's look into if you can look into these videos, you'll find it. Dunkin' Donut is a coffee company in Korea. The name Dunkin' Donuts, what does it think? You think it's donuts. So the company felt, how would they convey to their the people that it's coffee, and how would they ensure that the customers actually more and more customers are coming out. So what they found out, they saw that most of the people commute through buses. So identified the bus stops from where they get up and where they get down. So what happened is, in the buses, when the buses are going, moving and people are there, so the advertisement of Dunkin' Donuts coming on, it comes, and it is in the form of jingle. And when the jingle is played, it goes on. The smell of coffee is being sprayed. So what happens? People are hearing that jingle and the smell, so they correlate that Dunkin' Donut talks of coffee. Now what happens is, when they get down from the bus stop, in the bus stop the hoardings are there of Dunkin' Donuts. They again see it. Close by to the bus stops are these coffee outlets, Dunkin' Donuts, and so people want to go. They feel the need for a coffee, so that's how they go for it. And what has been seen, there has been a drastic increase in the number of customers who are going for Dunkin' Donuts coffee. That's how they did their business. So it's science research. They're looking, analyze, observing the human behavior, and then going about with it. Decoy effect is also, which has been, it's done through experiments, like when you go to the movies, what happens there, they give you popcorn, small size, medium size, large. So people usually will go for us, say the small size is 5 rupees, say 5 neutron, as you say, or medium size is 6. So people say, oh no, I'll go for five because it's it's lesser, price is less. I don't want the bigger one. Medium size, it's expensive. And what they did, they wanted to people to buy more, so they came up with a larger package, which is, and the difference between medium and the large is 0.5. So then they said, oh, See the difference? Like, why don't you take the, like a small one is like it's 5, but if you take the bigger one, medium one is 6, and the large one is 6.5. So there's a difference of 0.5. When there's a big group of people going, they would prefer for a medium. So why don't you take the big one? It's just 0.5 difference, but it's a huge quantity greater. So medium one is like this much, big one is this, difference is 0.5. So the target here was they never wanted to sell the small or the medium one. They wanted to sell the big one. And this is how they were doing it. They were doing observing the human psychology, and they tested, asked questions, and that's how they came about. So this is again science, and it's used in business. So role of scientific research, it attempts to minimize the influence of biasness or prejudice in the experimenter, reducing biasness, reducing prejudice, provides an objective, standardized approach for conducting experiments, and in doing so, it improves the results. So objective, there has to be an objective. There's the approach that is used is standardized. Everyone can use it, and so what happens? The results are much, much better. Okay, we come to the last topic that we have, that is where we talk of research project ethics. Ethics is very, very important. What is ethics? It belongs to the field of philosophy that talks with related with values and morals of human beings. Okay, so ethics are norms or standards of behavior that helps in making decisions with regards to our moral choices and our relationship with others. It tells us, right, based on our what are when people ask you what are your morals, what do you think about it. So ethics, that's how do what we think is right, what we think is wrong, depends on our ethics, right? So the main purpose, why are we talking of ethics here? So the main goal of ethics in research is to ensure that nobody gets harmed, should not harm anyone's sentiments. They should not result in any adverse consequences because of the research activities. Should not be that. Some of the things that you should avoid is being selective in sampling. When you do a sample, taking up a sample, it should be random. Not reporting survey response or participation rates. You should not report, okay, the responses, the participation rates. That you should be avoiding it, right? It should not, you should not like that. Then what happens? Like you are actually revealing the names of the persons. That you should be avoiding. Deliberately biasing the data collection instruments. So don't do that, don't do it. Like you data collection as per your you manipulate the data, you ask questions which you feel is important. Or here, as we when we're talking of it, like how many people have responded, don't if people have not responded, don't say people have responded, and so these are the people who've responded. So it becomes difficult, you're actually pinpointing and you're telling wrong things. So say the fact, making up data because you don't want to do a data collection, you just manipulate, you come up with data, falsifying results because so that you get the conclusion what you wanted. Trimming is where you remove data that does not fit in your analysis, right? You can do so, it's not illegitimate to do so, but you must be very clear with it that you've not taken certain data into consideration, and you have to say why you have not done. Biased or inappropriate analysis. Your analysis, if it's not done, if it's not appropriate or biased. Okay. Obfuscation is to deliberately confuse people, right? Not reporting the things, findings that are contrary to findings. Like certain things can be contradictory, so it's best to reveal the facts and not hide facts. Plagiarism, which you all know, stealing material from other source and passing it off as your own, right? So buying a paper from a research service, essay bank or term paper, right? So it is, which is actually written by someone else. Copying a whole paper from a source text without proper acknowledgement. You can always copy, but you have to give due acknowledgement. Submitting someone else's work without or with or without the knowledge of that person. Say copying, like for example, by copying a computer disk, submitting a paper written by someone else, right, your friend or relatives, or passing it off as your own. You say it's your own. So this is something which should be avoided. Now, ethical considerations, like what are the ethical considerations that you have to take into consideration? That is, one is protect the rights of the participants, from whom you're getting the interview. You should explain the benefits of study, why you are interviewing them. Explain the participants and protections. You have to explain it to them, explain everything to the participants clearly, and you have to protect their safety, protect them, right? You cannot reveal who said so. Obtained informed consents, you have to take the approval of those of your sample, people who are part of your sample, and take their permission. Right to privacy, whatever they say, it has to be kept confidential. Right to safety. Why? If you reveal their names, what happens? That can be danger. They are telling you the truth, so you should protect the right of sponsors. Now, sometimes some companies actually hire research agencies to do a research. Say if they want to launch a new product and they want to do a market survey to see how people react, respond to it, and finding out see the prices, what could be. So in that case, these companies don't want their names to be revealed. Why? If it's revealed in the market, there are competitors coming in. So that market can be taken away. So and they don't want the research agencies to reveal the names, right? So confidentiality of the sponsors should be there, and when the research is done, it should be really a quality research, proper research, because someone is funding, right? Okay, researcher and team members, safety. Safety of your entire team, safety of the researcher is needed, because what happens, you collect information, you can get into trouble. So it can be risky. Certain data collection is risky, so that safety should be there. Ethics behavior of and towards assistants. So you should have an ethical behavior towards your team, and the same thing, you should ensure that there is ethical behavior from your team members. Like whoever is helping you, you should be honest enough to give due credit to it, right? Not take away their credit. Protection of anonymity, like whoever, if like, you should be ensuring, you should not say that this person has given this report, that person has given this report, this person has collected this information. You should not say that we got it. Don't reveal anyone's names. Okay, that's all that we have. Now we look into the activity. These are the two activities which you should be doing, like find out the difference and similarities between business project and applied research, and what are the criteria of a good research and project. Okay, that's all that we have for you. Okay, right. So that's all that we have from here, and I'll